Welcome to the Cup of Mets podcast. I'm Ian Bosniak, joined alongside by Robert Venegas, as always. Episode 26 of season 2, and in fact, take 2. Rob, how we doing, buddy?
Good, Ian. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm glad that we could, re-record this episode. Yesterday was a disaster. We were live in person, and I don't know. We may just need an audio engineer or something along those lines because been having some audio difficulties when we've been recording together. But all that aside, just before we dive into it all, remember to give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. We are at Cup of Mets. Also, be sure to rate and subscribe to the pod, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And lastly, be sure to visit cupofmets.com for all your Cup of Mets merch. We got it all there for you. Get it while it's hot. So, for the third consecutive episode, we are going to be talking about David Stearns, but this time it's for real. David Stearns has been hired by the New York Mets. He will assume the role once the season concludes. It's a 5-year deal to become the president of baseball operations. Robbie, the long-awaited hire is over. How we feeling?
No, definitely officially official, as you know they'd like to say. But again, David Stearns, a name that has been thrown around the last 3, 4 seasons, is finally the baseball president of baseball operations. There we go, I got it. But but
Tongue
again,
twister.
he's in Queens. He started, I believe, with the Mets and had a cup of coffee working for Omar Minaya. But just a great hire overall by the Mets and Steve Cohen. Definitely is going to help not only the product on the field, but I believe the product off the field as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a massive acquisition for the organization. I mean, you look what he did to the Brewers organization. And as you said, he started out with the Mets as an intern, and he was also interning with the Cleveland Guardians at the time as well. He also worked for Major League Baseball, but then he went and worked for the Houston Astros and worked with all those guys and kind of built up what the machine has become in Houston. And then obviously was hired in 2015 to become the Milwaukee Brewers general manager. And from there, immediately took off swinging. We'll get into the kind of what he did. But Rob, this time around, knowing that he kind of had a team that was in a rebuild mode, he was entering a team that won 68 games. Obviously, the Mets are only going to end with 70-something wins, but their team is constructed to win more, right? They just really underachieved, had injuries, and then dealt away their players. You think that he's going to attack the Mets differently from the offset as he did in Milwaukee?
Well, again, you said that Milwaukee was more of a rebuild. And when I look at the Mets, it's not really a rebuild. It's just a kind of like a reconstruction in terms of some issues on the team. One with the starting pitching that's on the agenda. I mean, again, I think overall he's going to attack that in some sort of way, whether it's internal or signing a free agent or making a big trade. But I think first and foremost that Buck Showalter, is he going to manage next year? Is he going to be allowed to finish his contract out? I'm not sure, but that's probably the first item on the first order of business for me if I'm David Stearns, because you want to see if David Stearns brings in his own guy or if he lets Buck finish out his contract and lets him retire after the 2024 season.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because when I say, that we would touch upon the things that he did in Milwaukee to build it to where it was,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, he immediately brought in his own guy. Craig Counsell was working within the Milwaukee Brewers organization, but
Yeah.
he immediately hired Craig Counsell as manager. So definitely think that that's going to be number one item on the agenda, whether Buck stays or goes. The decision's going to be made there. He became the general manager of the Brewers at 30 years old and consistently saw an improvement from 2015 to 16, went from 68 to 73 wins. There was a 13-game win improvement from 16 to 17 when they went from 73 wins to 86 wins. and then a 10-game win improvement from 2017 to 18, winning 96 games in 2018, making the playoffs for 4 consecutive seasons. For the Brewers, made some key trades, some key acquisitions. Um, from the outset, as you mentioned, it was a rebuild. They did trade away a guy like Jonathan Lucroy and a few other names, but he's also shown the ability to make those trades. He acquired a Christian Yelich. He then signed a Lorenzo Cain at a right price at a right time in his career. Obviously, the Mets are going to be in the market. You just brought up
Mm-hmm.
pitching. Um, do you think that he's going to, given obviously we're seeing how things are playing out with the Mauricios, Vientos, Beatties, obviously Beatty's hurt right now, but the younger kids and some of the fringe guys, do you think that he's going to go ahead and obviously it's way too early to tell, but do you think he's going to go ahead and kind of plug the hole similarly, like as he did, maybe not splurge in terms of spending, but use the budget and allocate it in different ways, opposed to how they did it this year?
No, I mean, again, he has Steve Cohen money to play with now, so I think everything's on the table at this point. But again, I don't want to get into specific names, but I think he really does attack the starting pitching market. But again, in terms of on the field, I also think that the Pete Alonso, whatever you want to call it, the saga, the drama, whatever you like to call it, it's got to be figured out. Whether it's
That'll
after
shape
the
everything.
season, or over the winter meetings. But and again, the Mets do have the option to let again to have Pete play out his final year of his contract. But again, we don't know how that'll affect everybody mentally, physically, negatively, positively. So again, I just think he has a lot of options to play with in terms of just money and just his knowledge of analytical knowledge and his knowledge of the game in general.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see though, but I really
And
think it starts with the managerial
and you
decision
meant
because again, if he brings in his own guy, then it's a brand new coaching staff. If you really
yeah.
think
Yeah,
about it,
and you mentioned it yesterday and in the episode that uh went terribly wrong. Um you mentioned the fact that, Billy Epler did kind of set David Stern. Obviously Billy Epler will be retained, but Epler kind of set Stearns up well, right?
yeah,
Made all those moves
definitely.
at the deadline, brought in the Drew Gilberts and the Ryan Cliffords and the Luis Angel Acuñas, and
Mm-hmm.
set him up so that he can, as you said, not only play with the money that Steve Cohen has, but also be able to do different things. And I think that that's really important. And for somebody who's worked with a limited budget before in David Stearns in
Yeah.
Milwaukee, um, you know, it's almost like Andrew Friedman going from Tampa Bay to Los Angeles, right?
Mm-hmm.
He went from a tiny market
Small
in Tampa
market. Yeah.
Bay, built out a winner, and then was able to go to Los Angeles and do the same thing analytically speaking, and getting those undervalued players at the right price, but
Mm-hmm.
then also being able to use the money to sign the players that are needed to plug the holes.
No, definitely. Yeah, 100%. That philosophy is sick, honestly. And Tampa Bay Rays have done a good job,
They've
obviously as a
sustained it.
small market team, and even Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland's always been that type of gritty, nitty team that just goes off farm system pitching, and then they build a contender
And that's
through
and
that.
this is why I think it's just, as we,
Just the beginning.
it's it's just the beginning, because as
Yeah.
you just mentioned a few different front offices, right, and a
Mm-hmm.
few different organizations, and those are the teams that are the most highly regarded, right? You're
Yeah.
looking at, he worked in Cleveland, right? He worked in Houston. He worked in Milwaukee, who has sustained success, and they're about to win another National League Central championship, after they fell short last year. Um, they're all from the same mold, and Stearns is an Andrew Friedman
Yeah.
2.0. So
Yeah.
just
No,
such a
and
great
again,
hire for the New York Mets.
100%. And
Uh,
again, what I wanted to say, just to go off one more thing that you mentioned, was that again, Epler kind of didn't really leave the bad contract slash decisions up to Stearns in terms of the next offseason. So imagine having like Verlander and Scherzer still on the books, and Stearns has to make more than just one decision from the roster, internal roster. You know what I mean? So again,
Yeah.
I think he does handle the Pete Alonso situation. Um, like his in again, I think eventually Alonso resigns, but he's gonna handle it well. He's gonna focus on just that one player, opposed to just dumping other players with terrible contracts or big number contracts elsewhere. You know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But listen, from Rob and I here at the Cup Mets podcast, Steve Cohen, A+ higher, my friend. So we brought up the likes of Pete Alonso and Buck Showalter. We have mainly three things that we agree on that David Stearns needs to attack. First and foremost, they got to decide on Buck Showalter.
Mm-hmm.
Which way are you leaning right now, knowing that Stearns hired Craig Counsell immediately, knowing that Counsell's a free agent after the year, but also knowing Buck is a very well-respected manager, has a year left in his contract? What is your gut take right now here on September 19th with the Mets 12 games left, and, the reign of David Stearns set to begin?
Yeah, no, I mean I've said it before and I'm gonna stick by it. I think Buck Showalter has a conversation with the three-headed monster, which and I mean the three-headed monster is in Cohen, Stearns, Epler. And I think they offer him a like a kind of like a Terry Collins role when Terry Collins kind of stepped down. Just to be in the front, not front office, but just to be in the higher ups, not in the dugout anymore. I do think Stearns brings in his own guy, and that guy is Craig Counsell. I mean, you said it; he's a free agent after this year. I don't see him taking a year off, and
Yeah.
again, I just see kind of, and again, I like Craig Counsell. I would love the hire if it actually happened, but one thing to kind of consider is that this is the fourth time in 7 years that we've had a new coach. So, again, I just want sustainability in
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. But again, I think Council is a perfect fit.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely is accurate. It's definitely been a rotating chair in the managerial seat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, exactly, sustainability, and Council has spent the last 8 years in Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
is about to lead them to the playoffs in the fifth of those 8 years. So, that would definitely be something if they brought in Craig Counsell. Again, the decision's going to be made shortly after. There was some sort of report the other day that Buck Showalter may opt to retire at season's end. To me, I think that, yeah, if Craig Counsell is going to leave Milwaukee, which is very close to home, he grew up near Milwaukee. He also played for the Brewers, right?
Yeah.
And obviously has this long-standing tenure as manager. If he decides that he will leave, then you make that choice and you say, all right, if it's transition type season, let's make the move now. Let's do it. Let Council get adjusted and acquainted with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if not, and if Council either stays in Milwaukee or he does take that year off that you say that you don't think that he does, um, I say that you just stick with Buck for one more year, let him finish out his contract. The one name that I will throw out, and I threw it out yesterday, is Alex Cora. Chaim Bloom, who we'll talk about, Chaim Bloom, Chaim Bloom. He was let go, and the Red Sox have begun kind of a restructuring of their own. That's the one other guy that I would seek to move Buck elsewhere, if Alex Cora became available, because I think Alex Cora and Craig Counsell are very similar, tactically speaking, managerial wise.
No, of course. I mean, he's that good of a manager that he had to get fired and then they rehired him. So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah. No.
no, I mean, World Series champion. He's a former Met player, and again, I think he'd go well with like a guy like a Lindor.
Yeah.
Um, but again, yeah, no, I would like an Alex Cora as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Second item on the agenda, Pete Alonso. The saga, as Rob said before, it's got to come to its conclusion one way or the other. Hate to say it like that. From my standpoint, I'll just give it to you, Frank. If he wants $30 million a year, or if he wants 10 years, if some team comes in here and overwhelms me with a package, I'll consider trading him. If not, I'll hold him for 2024. If the Mets are not in it, I trade him at the deadline unless they could work out an extension and they're confident in that, like the Yankees did with Aaron Judge. Okay. Pete Alonso should be the highest paid first baseman right now in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be at $28 million. That would be above the Freeman. That would be above the Olsen. And that would be above the Goldschmidt. To me, he's at 7 or 8 years. That's my max. And that's where I go. And some people, I think I tweeted it, and some people are, or no, I think someone called, no, I don't know what it was, but someone called me out saying, what's the difference between 7 and 8 and, 10 years or something along those lines? It's like, there's a big difference. Alonso's going to be entering his age 29 season, and then he could wind up being a free agent again at 36, opposed to,
38, 39.
38, 39. And,
Yeah. Simple math here.
it's for, yeah, thanks, man. But for the Mets' sake, I mean, again, bigger guys tend to break down a little bit earlier, right? But I think that he's still going to have that power no matter what. So that's why I'm on board with re-signing Pete Alonso, whether he spends another 4 years at first base, 5 years at first base, and then transitions over to DH. If he's hitting 35 plus home runs a year average, right, over the span of his contract, that's a pretty good contract, because that OPS will be within the 800 range. He'll get on base. But again, a 10-year contract would be wild for me.
No, yeah, it's a big commitment. And, you see a guy, I'm not saying Pete Alonso's an Albert Pujols, but you see a guy like Albert Pujols who signed that 10-year deal, and he kind of broke down towards the tail end of that contract.
And I think he was 30 when he signed that
Yeah,
contract.
exactly.
Somewhere.
And, it's impressive when major leaguers play till they're 35, 40, and I give them all the credit in the world. But, you see a guy like, again, and not just, obviously Pete Alonso would be 39, 40 around that time. But again, you don't know where the Mets will be at when he's 39, 40, financially, as a team, as a franchise in general. So again, you don't want to put yourself in that hole / kind of like bad problem to have towards the end of a hopefully luxurious career for Pete Alonso.
Would you hold him if you can't work out an extension this offseason
I mean,
for
you're gonna
2024?
have to.
Or
I would. I mean,
now,
he's your first baseman.
Now let me ask you, what happens?
You know,
Yes, he's a good first baseman,
yeah.
slugs the shit out of the ball. You know what you're going to get. What happens if a team comes in and offers, a major league ready player who is known already, as well as 2 top prospects or something like that? Would you feel like you have to consider it, or would you still roll into 2024 with Alonso being competitive?
Yes, because no, I feel like the better deals or the best deals come at the deadline, anyways. So, even if we can't come to an agreement in the winter, if somebody just blows the table out, flips the table and says, here's this, that, and the third over the winter, then okay, yeah, obviously you consider it. You have to. You're doing your due diligence. But again, you hold on to him. He has another 35 plus home runs, 40 plus home runs. He stays healthy. He's hitting for average. His OPS is where you want it to be, and the Mets are out of it, then you're gonna get more bang for your buck. It's like a stock.
Yeah.
It's like a stock, essentially, no?
No, yeah, I agree. I agree.
And
So
again, obviously, vice versa. If he's playing like shit, then we're gonna get shit, But
yeah, then we'll get fucked. Yeah, but I
yeah,
don't
but
think.
at the end of the day, I just want Pete Alonso to be a Met. So
Yeah,
but
I
you
mean,
got to do your due diligence.
at the end of the day, he's within the top 5 all time in home runs within their first 5 major league seasons. And if it wasn't for the COVID-ridden year,
Mm-hmm.
he'd be sitting right behind Ralph Kiner at number 1 or above Ralph Kiner. So it's generational power. Third item on the list, and there's kind of a fourth as well, just because Rob really kind of focused in on it yesterday, made it a big deal, but then obviously the episode went away. When Stearns joined the Milwaukee Brewers organization, he reshuffled the front office. He moved a lot of guys around. Structurally speaking, changed their positions, fired a ton of guys, brought in an assistant general manager and Matt Arnold, who's now a really, really well respected executive within the league. The Mets similarly underwent configuration in their front office a couple weeks ago. The likes of Kevin Howard and such were fired. You think that was like, hey, we've spoken to Stearns and this is what Stearns have said? Do you think that Stearns kind of directed that?
Wouldn't that be tampering?
Um, no, I don't think so. Maybe Stearns said, I mean, this is kind of what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then Billy Epler and Steve Cohen said, fuck it, we'll make the decision on our own. We'll just do it.
I don't
And
know. I think it was more the owner of anything, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
never know. But again, I just this new they're trying to build a new regime. So
yeah.
I
And a guy
think
that
the guys that have been there for a while who again it just wasn't up to Cohen's standards or up to par with what we were trying to do here. So
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. And you mentioned build out a front office. I want to ask you quickly. I mentioned a name earlier. Shane Bloom, Heim
from the
Bloom.
Red Sox or formerly from the Red Sox.
Yeah, we bringing him in or what?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Assistant.
if you're trying to build a super team on and off the field, that's definitely what you should do. He's a great mind. He did wonders for the Rays, and again, I just think great minds think alike. So him and Stearns together making moves along with Steve Cohen, who's a businessman, and Billy Epler as the GM. I just think again, all signs lead to again, there's gonna be some brewing in Queens. So
Think about it. Bloom as the assistant to Billy Epler, and then
mhm.
you got David Stearns as the president of baseball operations.
Yeah,
That would be quite a restructuring of the front
of
office.
course, 100%.
And then lastly, Rob, if you just want to take this one away, because I know that this is a big focal point for you, it's a focal point for me as well. And we'll touch upon it many more times over the course of the next few episodes, as well as in the winter. But Rob, what do you think Mr. Stearns needs to do, man?
Okay. I mean, again, pitching,
Who?
pitching, and more pitching, as
Yep.
we discussed pre show. Again, Kodai Senga's gonna be at the top of your rotation. Quintana's looked great or good as of late. I honestly like Jose Quintana. I could see him in a 4 or 5 spot in the rotation. So you got 3 holes to fill, right? Especially in the rotation. You want a high end guy, and then maybe, obviously those 2 guys that not high low risk high reward type guys, but again, team friendly deals, no qualifying offers attached, and maybe no later than a 3 to 4 year commitment. But number one target should be Kodai Senga's best friend from Japan, Yoshinibo Yamamoto. I want the yo-yo curve in Queens along with the ghost fork every 2 days. Again, I just think pitching is the priority right here for the Mets because again, we have a couple cornerstone infielders and an outfielder that are locked long term. I just see pitching as a priority. That's why we were good in 2022, in my opinion. So
Yeah. Yeah. I let you just say Yoshinibu Yamamoto just because I know that he's your target, he's your guy. Um, Listen, pitching is going to be at the forefront of the list for David Stearns. We know this already. I agree with you. You could patch that hole, those 2 other holes if you get Yamamoto. Something that I would consider signing somebody that is going to give you 160 plus innings. I know that that'll cost you 12 to 13 million bucks like it did with Quintana, but sign somebody like that and then sign a high risk or a high risk, high reward guy or a low risk, high reward guy. Um, or you could do you could do either or high risk, high reward, low risk, high reward. But I think that that's how you would patch up your rotation. But I agree with you, man. Yamamoto all the way. So obviously, every individual that pays attention to baseball was and are and were convinced all at once that 2024 is going to be a competitive but kind of transitory year for the New York Mets. However, a recent report from John Harper of both SNY and Oh, he's just a freelancer now. I didn't realize he's not working for anybody. But for SNY, he spoke to an executive who said that I'd have to believe their thinking changes if Ohtani tells them he'd come to New York. Um, said a rival team executive. He'd make their offense above average with the potential to be better than that if their young prospects produce. Then you go and spend on pitching, sign a starter, and trade some prospect capital for another, then beef up the bullpen, and you've got a legit contender. Um, John Harper writes, if the Japanese superstar is willing, every baseball person I spoke to fully expects that Steve Cohen would make the biggest offer, even if Ohtani won't pitch in 2024, despite the Mets signaling that they won't be all in. What do you make of this report?
I mean, just a businessman being a businessman. He wants the best, and Otani is the best free agent on the market, whether he's hitting or pitching. But again, if this happens in Queens, I can only imagine how much we spend, but that would definitely help us. I don't know about in the long run, but it would definitely make us, like they said, a legit contender if they continue to just kind of like bolster the bullpen and pitching along with a guy like Otani.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think that his recent injury has declined his stock a little bit in terms of what he's going to get paid in the offseason. They were talking about $600 million, $500 million. You may be looking at high fours now, right? And that may shift, um, you know, Cohen's thinking. Another thing to consider, again, you don't spend a shit ton of money like that on a designated hitter ever, right? But something to consider, even if Ohtani opts for Tommy John surgery, which he's going to get, if you look at Bryce Harper had the surgery last year on November 23rd and was in the lineup as DH on May 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Would you dish out that type of cash to somebody that's going to be just primarily a designated hitter in 2024 and is going to miss a month or two?
I mean, did you see the designated hitter we had this year?
Which one?
that's
They've
my
all
that's my
sucked.
response. So yeah, I would. I mean, especially a guy like Otani. They're comparing him to guys like the greatest of the greats. So again, I would because again, next year, depending on how many years we have him locked down for, next year he'll be rehabbing for pitching along with still hitting. So
Yeah.
and
So I
then no,
guess
again in 2025 and hopefully and beyond, he'll be in the rotation. So
Yeah, so I guess that individual's remark is basically stating that the Mets would splurge since
mhm.
the price would come down and Ohtani would be that offensive piece. Then they'd go
Yeah.
spend that other capital on pitching,
Hmm.
fill those two spots or three spots, whatever it is, and then, you know, trade for one or something along those lines and use the prospects that you have. Um, the probabilities of it happening, I don't know. I think there's like a 60% chance because like we don't know if he will A come to the East Coast.
Hmm.
Um B, we don't know what his price is gonna be yet. And C, we still don't know when he's getting this surgery and when he would be able to return next year. And not everybody, was
Recovers the same.
recovers the same as like a Bryce Harper. So I'd put it at like 60%. I don't know. Where are you?
I mean, again, anything's possible with Steve Cohen's money, but right now, I don't think it's happening at all. I think it's at like a 30 to 40% chance, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll see though. We'll see. I mean, again, we'll see how the market is handled because
Yeah.
if it's like the housing market right now, then it's gonna be a lot of money. But
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Mets are obviously going to have to spend on a bat. They have to. They have glaring needs offensively. Um, spending that much on a designated hitter, I am wary of. With that said, he posted 6.6 WAR alone as a hitter, 44 home runs, 95 RBIs. He's even stole 20 bags. His slash line was 304, 412, 654 slugging percentage. His WOBA was 433 and 179 weighted runs created plus. And he's going to miss, obviously, he's missed the majority of September. He's missing the rest of the year, and he's still going to win MVP. So I see the value in that, especially if, he's going to come back and pitch as well. We just don't know his future plans pitching. We don't know if he's going to be, that big time frontline starter again, considering this is his second Tommy John, or we don't know if he's going to be more of like a, I don't know, maybe the Mets could get creative or a team could get creative and make him like a John Smoltz and have him become a lethal closer. I don't know the rules. How MLB would take that, since there are a bunch of Ohtani rules already, but I don't know. I agree with you though. I don't think it happens, but anything is possible with Steve Cohen's money. Lastly, Rob, enough with the hypotheticals and what's already been done in David Stearns being hired. Let's talk some on-field baseball. The Mets have 12 games left. Joey Lucchesi gets the ball tonight. He'll be opposed by Braxton Garrett of the Miami Marlins. We saw Jose Butto toss a gem last night. Joey Lucchesi has looked great this year when he's been given an opportunity. Why do we think Joey Lucchesi and Jose Butto have not been called upon more than a guy like Tyler McGill or David Peterson when they were getting blown up during the summer when we actually had a shot?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I mean, again, I think they have. I don't know. That's tough. That's tough because I'm not in the clubhouse every day. But again, maybe because guys like McGill and Peterson have had, more experience in the majors than a guy like Jose Butto. Joey Lucchesi, I think it has something to do with his coming off of Tommy John. They don't want him to throw that many innings in the not only in the majors but in general. But again, those two guys that you mentioned, they've been nothing but really good with their time with the Mets. I mean, I know that Lucchesi, this is his 8th start, and his ERA is under 3. And then, again, a guy like Butto also made 7 starts, or excuse me, has pitched in 7 games. 5 of them, I want to say, are starts, and he's pitched to almost a 3-year ERA as well. So you got to like
Yeah.
what you see out of those two, and hopefully they can compete in 2024.
Yeah. Buto's having trouble pronouncing several names today. Buto's last 3 starts, 6 1/3, 2 earned runs allowed, 1 walk, 6 Ks, 5 innings pitched, 3 walks, 7 Ks, 1 earned run allowed, and obviously last night against Miami, 6 innings, 1 earned run, and 6 strikeouts, just 1 walk. And then you got a guy like Joey Lucchesi, who, as you mentioned, is pitching tonight and has an ERA underneath 3. He's pitched well all season. The last time that we saw him before the game in Arizona, where he tossed 7 shutout innings, we saw him in St. Louis toss 5 2/3, giving up no runs. And that was in August. And then the previous time that we saw him was in May. And he had 1 rough outing within that span. And I don't know. You know me. I'm a big David Peterson fan. And we both like the upside in Tyler McGill. But I don't know, man. I would have given them more of a shot. Butto to me reminds me of like a Jose Fernandez. He looks like I don't know, just the way that and you mentioned somebody yesterday that he reminds you of.
Jose Barrios.
Jose Barrios. Okay.
Barrios, yeah.
Okay. All right. So the Jose's.
Just cause like kind of like motion and arm angle wise, and even just pitches. Jose Barrios was known for his changeup, and Jose Butto has a good changeup. So,
Yeah,
but
and
I don't know. I
Barrios.
mean, I just think again, like I think Lucchesi coming off of Tommy John, that has something to do with it. And he's also 30 years old, maybe. So Peterson has that a little bit. He's what 24, 25, but I don't know. I understand. That's a great question. That's something we should probably ask Todd Zeal next time we have him on.
Yeah. Or Nelson Figueroa, who's popping on next week.
That's
Mr.
sick. Yeah.
Nelson, former Mets right-hand starting pitcher and SNY analyst Nelson Figueroa will join us. That's totally a side note. That was impromptu. But yeah, I don't know. The To me, I just think the Mets see the upside right now in Peterson and McGill just because they're in those prime ages. And I agree with you, Lucchesi coming off Tommy John. But it's funny, they all are pitching well right now, which is fun to see down the stretch. David Peterson right now, he's in the 74th percentile when it comes to whiff percentage within the major leagues. He struck out 10 batters in his last start. He's striking hitters out. He's missing bats. He's getting the ball on the ground, and good thing he's got a good defense behind him. He's got a 5.22 ERA, but his FIP is in the 4.4s. So he's pitched much better than that ERA shows. And then a guy like Tyler McGill, also, he's pitched much better as of late. And I think that this is nothing but good signs for the Mets, considering they know that they have to fill the 3 slots in the offseason via free agency or via their prospect capital. And then knowing that we actually can have this insurance like we thought we were going to have coming into this year, but then obviously 2 of the 3 were in the starting rotation before the season even started. So, or 2 of the 4, I should say. So, I don't know. Where do you see them all fitting in for next year?
Those. Oh, again, I would love to see Lucchesi get a shot at and crack the rotation, but if it's going to be one lefty, I'm going to have to choose David Peterson. I think he just has higher upside. He generates a lot of swings and misses. That back foot slider, when it's on, and he also has some velo on that sinking fastball and regular fastball in general. I just think Peterson, again, has more of an advantage in terms of cracking the rotation next year.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that I've said it before, and then I think you countered me yesterday saying that you think maybe it's Jose Butto more so, but I see Tyler McGill being more of a Trevor Williams type, and I've said it multiple times on the pod. And I know that you think that Jose Butto could fill that role.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about. Okay, now I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. Either way, I think the Mets are set up nicely in terms of depth right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something that we thought we were going to have going into 2023. But that's why when I mentioned filling the gaps, a guy like Yamamoto, awesome. After that, make sure you get a guy that's going to toss 150 plus innings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're getting innings out of your starting pitchers, because we saw what it did to us early this year. Our pitchers couldn't get out of the 5th inning
Yeah.
for the first, month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, no, I felt like 2018 all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, Mr. Kodai Senga. Unreal. And I think people need to start taking his Cy Young candidacy a bit more seriously. He's now struck out 191 batters in 155 and a third of an inning, making 27 starts. He'll probably make 2 more. He's 11-7. Forget the wins. If his FIP, I think, is 3.4, I don't have it in front of me. But if you look at Baseball Savant, which is my go-to, bread and butter, all the advanced metrics, you're looking at red, baby. You're looking at great. All right. Pitching run value. He's in the 99th percentile. Pitching run value. Okay. K percentage, 86th percentile. Barrel percentage, 77th percentile. Whiff percentage, 76th percentile. And obviously it's that forkball. Rob, how high is Kodai ceilings?
I mean, you see it just from his rookie year. It's pretty high, very high. He has the 3rd best ERA in the National League, behind Blake Snell and Justin Steele. And again, it's the 5th best in Major League Baseball. His strikeout rate is the 4th best in the National League, and he has allowed more than 2. He has allowed more than 2 earned runs just twice over his last 14 starts. That's a stud, and that's someone that should be considered in the Cy Young conversation. Again, there was concerns with how many days rest he needs, the size of the baseball. Is he going to adjust to American League hitters and the baseball in general? I think those questions don't need to be asked anymore because Kodai Senga has adjusted. He's been the bright spot in the Mets rotation, and I couldn't be more happier for him.
Yep, those questions have been answered. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that a big thing is like, listen, he throws 6 different pitches, so the big issue with him early on was commanding the pitch, and whether that was the cold weather, considering he played in domes a lot of the time in Japan, or whether
Yeah.
it was the size of the ball, right? As the season has gone on, and especially as you mentioned over those last 14 starts, he's been able to command the pitches. He hasn't been walking as many guys. And the biggest thing for him, that fork ball, I believe, is the most whiffed at pitch this year in all of Major League Baseball. Hitters are whiffing at a clip over 58% on that fork ball. And the biggest thing is that he's able to now throw that fork ball for a strike to get ahead of hitters early in counts instead of just dumping it off with 2 strikes and having hitters swing and miss and strike him out. So he's able to locate everything for strikes, man. Everything's clicking for him. You mentioned he's a stud.
No, definitely. And again, the ghost fork is the best pitch in Major League Baseball. I mean, he generates the most swings and misses from that one single pitch. And again, those stats that you said before are pretty impressive as well. So again, Cy Senga, vote for him if we could. But yeah, I hope MLB writers are listening.
No, yeah, for real. Cy Senga,
Mm-hmm.
listen, we know Blake Snell's had a good year. We know Steele's had a good year. We know that Zach Gallen, even though we roughed him up, we know he's had a good year. Cy Senga, baby. At least make him in the top 3. Come on, writers. Alrighty, Robbie, as we wrap up take 2 of episode 26, and hopefully this one is all squared away audio-wise. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I mean 12 more games left. It's been a long season, 2023, another year to forget. But overall, thank you for all the support. Make sure you cop your merch on cupofmets.com. But other than that, man, let's just again 12 games left. Let's try to enjoy and watch the young kids play, and hopefully Senga can finish the season off strong, get a couple votes for Cy Young, and hopefully win a Rookie of the Year. And let's just watch David Stearns and Cohen and company cook because that's why we hired him. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you next episode.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. No, listen, I think that these last 12 games, take them in while you can because it's going to be a long winter, but I think it's going to be a fun winter because, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
there's a new group in town, and David Stearns is heading it, and he's going to have his work cut out in front of him, but it's going to be a fun off season. But again, we're not finished here. We still have a few more episodes to go here in season 2 before the hot stove kicks off at the end of November. But again, as Rob said, remember to cop your merch, your Cup of Mets merch on cupofmets.com. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. We are at Cup of Mets. Also, be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And for Robert Venegas, I'm Ian Bosniak. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care. Good night.